Here's what nobody saw coming this summer. A basketball tournament happening thousands of miles away from Los Angeles just completely flipped the Lakers' entire strategy. While most fans were focused on training camp and preseason drama, Luka Doncic was quietly putting together one of the most dominant international performances we've seen in years. And now, the ripple effects are about to reshape how the Lakers approach the next few seasons. Most people think international basketball doesn't really matter for NBA teams. Just a nice little showcase, right? Wrong. What Luka did at EuroBasket 2025 wasn't just impressive. It was a wake-up call that's got Lakers management completely rethinking their whole approach to building around their superstar. Let's start with what actually happened over there, because these numbers are borderline ridiculous. Luka averaged 34.7 points per game, leading the entire tournament. Not just leading Slovenia, not just playing well for his team, leading everyone. Then you had 8.6 rebounds and 7.1 assists, and you're looking at a guy who basically carried an entire country on his back. But here's where it gets wild. Those aren't just good international numbers. Those are historically elite numbers that put him in conversations with the greatest EuroBasket performances ever. His 47-point explosion against France, second highest scoring game in tournament history. His 42-point masterpiece against Italy, where he dropped 22 in the first quarter alone, pure basketball artistry. The crazy part isn't just the production, it's how he did it. Coming off a summer where his conditioning became a viral talking point, Luka looked like a completely different player physically. More explosive, more sustained energy, carrying heavier loads without that familiar fourth-quarter fade we've seen in Dallas? Here's what most people don't understand about the Lakers' situation heading into this season. They've been walking a tightrope financially, trying to balance being competitive now while keeping future flexibility. The plan was pretty straightforward. See how things develop, keep cap space options open, maybe make some moves next summer when LeBron's massive contract comes off the books. That conservative approach made sense when you're dealing with questions about how motivated Luka would be, how his body would hold up, whether he could really be the guy to carry a championship-level team. All reasonable concerns for a player who, let's be honest, had shown some inconsistency in high-pressure moments. But then Luka happened, and suddenly every assumption the front office had been working with got thrown out the window. This wasn't just Luka playing well. This was Luka playing like the best basketball player on the planet. What nobody talks about is how quickly NBA front offices can pivot when they see something that changes their entire calculus. According to sources close to the organization, the Lakers' whole stance on roster improvements shifted dramatically after watching Luka's EuroBasket dominance. Before the tournament, they were content to be patient, to see how things develop organically. Now, they're actively exploring more aggressive moves, even within their limited financial constraints. The thinking is simple. If Luka can play at this level consistently, you don't waste that window being cautious. The specific example that's been floating around involves Miami's Andrew Wiggins, a player the Lakers reportedly weren't interested in earlier this summer. Now, he's suddenly on their radar as someone who could provide the two-way wing talent they desperately need. That's not just a change in targets, that's a fundamental shift in philosophy. Let's dig into why Wiggins specifically makes sense for what the Lakers are trying to do. This isn't about getting another star. It's about finding the right complementary pieces for what Luka does best. Wiggins averaged 18 points and shot 37.4% from three last season, but more importantly, he's shown he can step up in championship moments. Remember his 2022 playoffs with Golden State? That wasn't a fluke. That was a glimpse of what happens when Wiggins is in the right situation with the right motivation. Put him next to Luka and LeBron. Give him clear role definition, and you might be looking at a guy who can provide exactly the kind of versatile, two-way production that championship teams need. The challenge, of course, is making the money work. Both the Lakers and Heat are hard-capped, Miami's trying to figure out their own direction, and any deal would likely need a third team. It's complicated. But here's the thing. Complications didn't stop the Lakers from making bold moves before. But there's another layer to this that goes beyond just adding talent. What Luka showed in EuroBasket wasn't just skill. It was a completely different level of physical preparation. That viral conditioning story from the summer, it wasn't just social media hype. This was a player who clearly took his physical preparation to another level.
Think about what that means for the Lakers' championship window. If Luka can maintain this level of fitness and performance throughout an 82-game season plus playoffs, you're not just talking about a good player having a good year. You're talking about a potentially historic peak that you absolutely cannot waste. That's why the urgency makes sense. Championship windows in the NBA are shorter and more fragile than people realize. When you see a player elevate to this level, especially one who's locked into a long-term contract, you have to capitalize immediately. Here's where things get really interesting from a roster construction standpoint. LeBron's $52 million coming off the books next summer gives the Lakers massive flexibility, but it also creates a timeline question. How do you balance building around Luka's prime with maximizing whatever LeBron has left? The EuroBasket performance suggests that maybe those timelines aren't as conflicted as people thought. If Luka is playing at this level and LeBron can still contribute as a secondary star, you've got a window that might be bigger than anyone expected. That changes how aggressive you should be right now. It's not just about next summer anymore. It's about this season being a potential championship opportunity that you can't afford to approach cautiously. When you have a player performing like Luka did in Slovenia, every month you wait is a month you might not get back. What's happening with the Lakers right now is actually a perfect example of how modern NBA team building really works. It's not just about having a plan, it's about being able to recognize when circumstances change and pivot accordingly. Luka's EuroBasket performance didn't just show he's a great player, it showed he's entered a different tier entirely, one where you build everything around maximizing his peak years. That's not the same player the Lakers were planning around 6 months ago, even though it's technically the same guy. The ripple effects go beyond just potential trades or signings. It changes how they think about coaching decisions, rotation management, even something as basic as load management during the regular season. When you have a player performing at historically elite levels, every decision gets filtered through that reality. Here's what really matters. Championship windows in the NBA are usually shorter than teams expect and longer than they seem in the moment. The Lakers thought they were in a transitional phase, figuring things out, building for the future while staying competitive. But Luka's EuroBasket dominance suggests they might actually be in the middle of a legitimate championship window right now. Not next year, not after they make more moves, right now, this season, with the right additions and the right approach. That's why the reported shift toward being more aggressive makes complete sense. You don't get many chances to have a player performing at the level Luka showed in international competition. When you do, you can't afford to be conservative about maximizing that opportunity. The crazy thing about all of this is how a tournament that most NBA fans barely followed has completely changed the trajectory of one of the league's most high-profile franchises. Luka didn't just play well for Slovenia, he showed the Lakers exactly what they have and what they need to do with it. Whether it's Wiggins or some other move we haven't heard about yet, or just a different approach to how they use their current roster, everything flows from those 3 weeks in Europe where Luka reminded everyone why he's one of the most unique talents the game has ever seen. The Lakers aren't just building around Luka anymore, they're building around what might be the peak version of one of the greatest players of his generation. And honestly, it's about time they started thinking that way.